All right, a very good afternoon and greetings from GlobalNxt University. Welcome to this session. Today is the 18th GlobalNxt Postgraduate Research Symposium, which actually is all our doctoral candidates who are ready for their research proposal as well as for their viva. And we want to congratulate all our learners who have reached to this stage. And for those who are attending as a guest, as well as all our learners, this is an opportunity for you to please kindly ask for any question after their presentation session so that to in prepare for them to go for their defense or their viva. All right. So with that, thank you again, once again, everyone. So I would like to invite our first learner, Annette Tuya Tunga. Can you please switch on your camera and share your PowerPoint presentation? Okay, so Annette, you only have exactly 15 minutes. If the last 2 minutes, I will give you a reminder and you have to wrap up and finish off your presentation. All right. So I wish you all the best and you can start now. Please put your presentation on presentation mode. Okay. You need to switch on your mic.
Do you hear me now?
Yes. Can you please put in PPT mode?
Yes,
All right. So
I
please
have
start
put
now.
it.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Annette Tuliatunga from Uganda. So the study focus is to assess the revenue leakage in Uganda's banking sector in order to identify the underlying causes and then thereafter the mitigants. So Uganda, the investigation with regards to revenue leakage in the banking sector is because Uganda as an economy, it's driven mostly by the services industry, and that is banking. So this is a key area of concern because it drives the economy. However, the banking sector has had a few issues whereby there's a bit of revenue leakage. There's a bit of revenue leakage and sorry. So hence the need to study and understand what is ideally causing these gaps and then what options there are to remedy this. The study is mostly hinged on the agency theory, which describes a relationship between an agent, who are the owners or who are the employees within the banks, and then the principals who are the shareholders of these banks. So it's just the aspect of the difference or the varying interests of the two parties. Then so that difference in alignment is also it's what the study is hinged on to say that we are studying this. So that's the agenda. Then the background of this study, we have it's hinged on four major aspects. So we've had various innovations within the banking sector, and this pertains to digitization, adoption of online banking, mobile banking, and these have been very, very advantageous to the industry and to the banks as well. Also advantageous to the clients because they promote better customer experience. They save costs. Instead of customers coming to banks, they transact from wherever they are. They also save costs of the bank themselves. So it's a very, very good initiative with regards to digitization. However, this has been exploited at some point by some individuals whereby they try to exploit the loopholes and then commit frauds. The second aspect with regards to the motivation, it's pertaining to the operational failures or internal failures within the banks. Where there are some weak spots or gaps therein, these are manipulated by some individuals, and then they are able to do some frauds or cause some revenue leakages to the bank as well. Then the other aspect is about the non-performing loans, whereby when the banks give out loans to customers, expectation is that they will earn this money back and the respective interest. However, in cases where some customers are unable to pay back, this is a risk to the bank because the money given out is at risk of not being returned. The other aspect is the oversight of the business operations by bank management or top management. The fact that where the oversight or that corporate governance, where the oversight with regards to issues of risk management is not sufficient, then oftentimes the employees are able to proceed and exploit any loopholes to commit tendencies that lead to revenue leakage. So those are the key areas. And then for problem statements, firstly, because the banks have adopted digitization, which is a very, very good and commendable move, which has tremendously grown business, there's been cases where these are exploited by certain people because it's technology. So a few people exploit this in order to steal money or to do fraud. So there's that problem of leakage. Then secondly, the increased ways in which individuals are committing frauds, which frauds are causing losses to banks. The various ways that over time have come up are also a problem. People are doing frauds through checks alterations, counterfeits. People are doing frauds, ATM frauds, social engineering. People are doing impersonation. So those various ways also have also motivated for this. Then lastly, because of the significant losses recorded within the banking institutions, this has also motivated for this study in order to lay out the possible causes as well as mitigants so that this is totally brought down. With regards to the research objectives, questions, the objective is basically to have an appreciation or an understanding of revenue leakage with the aim of putting in place, with the aim of understanding the root causes and then putting in place the mitigants to curb those. The first question is understanding revenue leakage, which is the unintentional loss of revenue to an institution, to the bank in this case, which can be because of errors, human errors, inefficiencies, or intentional frauds. Yeah, so it's just to understand that. The second, where revenue leakage exists. Revenue leakage exists in various sectors. It's in banking, it's in telecommunications, those companies, it's in government, public sector. So it's just to just be able to understand the various ways these are being carried out. And because with information therein lies the power to then address this problem. Then the third, the strategies that can be applied in order to minimize the revenue leakage issue. It's to assess and look through, understand the various options for the various ways in which these leakages are happening and be able to mitigate the same. The hypothesis for this study, one, it's to say there's a strong relationship between the weak internal controls within the banks leading to revenue leakages. It's to say the extent the extent to which banks have internal processes that have controls to risks that are not sufficient, that extent, and to what extent it can cause an occurrence of a leakage, that level, that relationship. Secondly, technology vulnerability, or the gaps within technology and how those now trickle down to cause revenue leakage as well. Then the third, it's with regards to flow of information between, like we said, between the employees and management, or employees and owners of these banks, because employees are involved in the daily operations of the institution. So oftentimes they are aware of the gaps, probably in the processes or in the technology or the trends thereof. And that flow of information from them to the management that does the decision making, if that flow of information is not effective, it means management will not take the necessary precautions or decisions to address the problem. So if it's ineffective, it means the level of occurrence or the risk or the chance of occurrence of revenue leakage is possible. Then number 4, it's the aspect of corporate governance. Corporate governance, pretty much the oversight of top leadership on the operations of the banks, in this regard with the lens or focus on risk management. If that oversight is sufficient, whereby they have maybe forums in place or structures that enable them periodically monitor the businesses, then that would mean, if they are sufficient, that would mean the levels of occurrence of revenue leakage are brought down. So that relationship. Then number 5, the ethical conduct of the employees also plays a part, or it's an aspect that can also move or alter the revenue leakage tendencies, whereby if there's no ethical conduct, then the chances of occurrence of leakage are higher. Then for this slide, we have the limitations and the contributions. Now, this being a cross-sectional nature of study across the sector, the limitation is the relationship, the ability to study the relationship between the various variables. Yes, the various variables involved, and then also the possibility of the respondents not being totally honest, whereby they give responses that they perceive are required or acceptable, as opposed to giving the true positions of what the actual state of affairs is, because the quality of information obtained through this study will inform the quality of the recommendations. Then the contribution, through this study, the information obtained, the conclusions drawn and the findings are able to inform the businesses or the banks with regards to the areas to pay attention to avoid revenue leakage. And that ultimately means they're able to safeguard their revenue and their gains, and thereby stay longer or sustain in operations for longer periods, which is a good thing. Then the other thing is, through this study and the different approaches recommended or findings and outcomes, the options are laid out to the banks to be able to look out for options they can deploy to address the problems that they are facing at the various dimensions, because at the various dimensions as well. Then for chapter 2, so for the sector-specific gaps, so the information flow between the employees and the shareholders or owners, that flow affects, that flow can lead to increase or reduction of revenue leakage, if it's good or if it's bad. Then the other aspect is the gaps in corporate governance, where that oversight of the shareholders or owners to the business, in specific, the oversight to the risk management aspects or parameters of the business. That too influences or impacts the chances of revenue leakage happening. Then the theoretical, it's hinged on the agency theory that explains that there is a principal who are the shareholders, stroke owners, and then there's the employees who are the agents. So the varying interests, or the two parties having different interests or a variation in interests, can also lead to tendencies or occurrences of revenue leakage, whereby if the agents withhold information that can be useful to the principal in making decisions, the correct decisions, timely decisions, then that can impact or can cause revenue leakage and definitely impact business. This
Okay,
theory
Annette, you
also.
only have 2 more minutes to wrap up your presentation, all right? So quickly wrap up. Thank you.
Then the gaps in regulatory, whereby, okay, I'll further just explain them here. I've explained the sectorial, and then the theoretical, the agency theory, and then, so the regulatory, it's just the barriers where the regulator puts in place expectations that the banks probably find complex to adhere to, or there's slow adoption, and thereby affect enforcement. That can also impact, cause the leakages. Then the operational barriers, these are within the banks, the inefficiencies, the internal processes, outdated technology that could lead to the leakage. Then the conceptual framework, it's just the different variables that can ideally potentially cause revenue leakage, like the weak internal controls within the banks, the technology, the information flow, like I already indicated. Then with research design, it's we shall use the cross-sectional correlational research design so that there is a study, there is analysis of the data, of the information at a specific point in time in order to give a view of the state of affairs with regards to revenue leakage. This will enable us quantify the findings from the bigger sample and be able to make meaning and decisions from them. The data collection, we will use so we shall have primary data from bank staff, and then we shall have secondary data from documents that are publicly available, the audit reports, the central bank reports, all those, and the cumulative, that review of all that collective information to give a picture and the depth that we require to understand these parameters and draw the correct conclusions. Then lastly, the analysis. We'll use descriptive analysis to be able to obtain the details of the respondents, and then we'll use multiple regression analysis in order to test the hypotheses that I spoke to. We'll also use exploratory factor analysis so that we are able to narrow down the various factors into significant fewer factors that can ably inform the areas of focus, the key movers, the key significant impacting aspects to the revenue leakage issue. And then of course this will lead us to the insights from the analysis that will then inform the conclusions, the recommendations, and the various approaches that would advise to the banks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Annette, for that presentation. I'd like to open this floor for the question, any comments from anyone? Any feedback or even any clarification on Annette's presentation? No one? All right. So looks like nobody is asking any question or giving any comments. So Annette, you can unshare your slide,
Okay.
and I will invite our next learner, Nilmani Singh. Just
Hello.
yeah, hi Nilmani. All right, just let's wait for Annette. Okay, all right, she's unshared. If you could just share your slide and put in
Sure.
PowerPoint, right? So, Nilmani Singh, congratulations to you. You are in a Viva stage. So, your presentation time will be 25 minutes to showcase your presentation. So, with that, I wish you all the best. And anytime you are ready, you can start.
Thank you very much. I will start. So, thank you everybody for joining in. I really appreciate to put your time for this research presentation, which I'll be doing. So, I'm Neil Mani Singh. I'm the group head of learning for Aditya Birla Group. If you know or belong to India, you will know Aditya Birla Group. It's a prominent, uh, one of the top two, three largest conglomerate and one of the largest conglomerate of the world with about 120 billion US dollar market cap. So it has 21 businesses. Why I'm sharing this with you to help you understand the complexity where I work. So it has 21 businesses, 190,000 employee, and I manage the group learning, leadership development learning for the group. The topic which I have taken, and as you'll see, it's action research also which I am doing. The topic, which is Gen AI, data analytics, digital transformation, the human aspects of the mindset and the change management. My guide is Professor Kanishka Bedi. Thank you very much, sir, for being my guide, and thank you for all the support you have been always giving. I move ahead. I'm inspired by learning, as the university says. So this is the content. So the it's pretty straightforward. So I keep moving. Now, the whole paradox is heavy investment is happening in technology. And this technology investment, conglomerates are putting billions of dollars in AI and digital space. However, it is not giving the fruit which it should give. And that is the sad part. This whole rapid acceleration of digital transformation through Gen AI, through the whole data analytics and intelligent automation, uh, why is it not reaping all the benefit it should reap? That's the dilemma. But you need to see it a little more below the surface at identity, leadership, and culture level. If only capital and technology could reap, it would have been very easy. And that is where we see that the human aspect starts coming in. So most digital transformation fail not because of technology, but because of organizations neglect the human factor that drives the technology, the employee resistance, the leadership alignment, and the mindset shift. And the whole technology, when I started this research about 2 years back or more back, there was Gen AI, and AI was prevalent at that time, but there was no agentic AI. I don't know, and we all don't know what it will be in 7, 10 years from now. Digital transformation, as one CIO tells me, is nothing but business transformation where you put all the digital aspects, AI, Gen AI, analytics, data, automation, and make the transformation, business transformation happen sort of 100%. make it 100x, 100 times faster. But does human being also go at that fast level? The whole motivation, the whole adaptation mindset, the whole resistance, the whole system, human system, does it all go? So this research objective, as you read there, is to investigate the live experience of employee and leaders during the Gen AI, digital transformation, data analytics adoption, focusing on three critical dimensions of mindset, managing research, resistance, and support system. And these are my questions. Now, since it is an iterative and epistemological research, in other words, basically I'm trying to study the social construction of a phenomena which shapes the human experience. So it's an action research. So I can't say that I'm proving this correct or proving that wrong, but I'm trying to study the phenomena. And my hypothesis is around that mindset, resistance, and support system is what matters. And hence I put these questions. Now, what is digital transformation? Many people have attempted defining it. So in my literature, there are a lot of references there. I've put a couple here. If you put it, you can get reams and reams of information on what is digital transformation. Basis study, I sort of summarize it here. It's around artificial intelligence, which all of us know is machine learning, automation, intelligent decision making. It's about process innovation, workflow automation. It's about data analytics, the whole business intelligence, the whole predictive analytics, the data-driven insights. And so much of cloud technologies now we have, the scalable infrastructure, remote accessibility. Now, as we see that and go further in literature, we see that all this, when you want to do, these 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 factors come in, which I repetitively bring in this research. You will hear these words: employee resistance, skills and knowledge gap, the organization silos, the leadership alignment, and the cultural inertia. The employee is not able to fathom what is going to happen. Nobody resists change. We resist the unpredictability. What will happen? So the fear of job displacement, skepticism about technology, will it work or not work? The whole comfort with the existing system. People are comfortable, they have adapted to the process. Hence, these brings the significant barriers to new adoption. Now, the skill and knowledge gap, the significant digital literacy it requires. Most of the people who are not the digital natives, in other words, the younger generation, Generation Z and below, are sort of digital natives. They're born in digital world. But people of, say, a baby boomer and the next generation, who are people like me, they have not yet, which I mean in 50s, 40s of the age, they have not born in digital system. So this whole literacy has to be brought to them. They need to learn digital. They need to make themselves familiar with it. They need to, the whole workforce development around technology utilization has to be done. Then the organization silos, departments are there, boundaries are there, communication barriers are there. And overall above, the leadership. And the biggest problem with leadership is the leadership itself needs to be immersed in digital. For them to be sponsor and carrier of this whole digital transformation, they need to first understand what is digital transformation themselves. They cannot delegate it because it's a business transformation, it's a culture transformation, it's a mindset transformation work. It cannot be delegated by leadership. And then the cultural inertia, the whole established organization culture that resists change any large organization, I'm talking about 190,000 people in my organization, for example, anything new will get resisted. It's like the organ rejection of a human body. It's a very good adaptive method of human body to save it from problems. However, that can create another problem when you're trying to do transformation. So the whole emerging theories I studied around digital mindset, the capability model, the system application, the growth mindset, the change management theory. So whole new technology models emphasize that digital mindset, dynamic capability, and system theory are critical to the framework for managing the human elements of digital transformation. And these models provide sophisticated approach to understanding the complex organization changes. So the whole technology acceptance is the mindset space where we have to go. Sensing market opportunities and seizing digital possibilities is another. Stakeholder interdependence comes in the system, and Carol Dweck model of growth mindset, my research leans a lot on that, and the structural transition, stakeholder alignment around change management is also a place where my research. Now, Literature Foundation further talks about the generative AI, analytic revolution, and integrated ecosystem, whereas on the right side talks about the transformation and the outcome it creates, the efficiency, the improved agility, the innovation acceleration. So it's a phenomena no human being who wants to be productive and make some impact can ignore. So you got to go to digital transformation. And many of us will not even realize that we are in digital transformation. Even this communication is happening through digital, which we transformed so well in the COVID days. Now, moving ahead, there were some surprising outcomes of studies. Now, these studies, I was shaken when I read the MIT study. It said even 95% failure of digital transformations can happen. But it was coming from MIT, as I give the reference below. And that made me more inquisitive to study. To share with you all, we are so committed at Aditya Birla Group on this phenomena that we have created a department under a program director who is part of my team. Rather, I was personally committed. I went to the leadership and got the budget because it's an epistemological, iterative, and interpretive research. I said, we should study this phenomena. And I proposed to my guide that there is no better topic to study than this. And he was very excited about it and full-heartedly supported me that this is the right thing to study. And these researches, when we read, furthermore reinforced our conviction. And what we see is the strategic partnership, continuous learning, change leadership helps a lot versus the silo, learning gap, and change resistance. So moving further, so the research methodology which I have taken is interpretive approach, which I have been talking to you, iterative approach, the epistemological approach, and the emergent understanding of the whole social construction and what is happening in this phenomena, which is shaping this human experience. And the best method to go about is qualitative. We had to talk to many people. So structured and the joy is to bring structure into qualitative. So we made a structured interview approach. we went to about 25 people who are impacted, running, are in the role, different profile, and then did a data analytics using software in a structured manner. If you see the data analytics, we went through various steps of data familiarization, producing the report, defining and naming. Then we came to it only through coding, theme development, and theme review, which I'll take you through step by step. So these were the 7, 8 steps we took. If step 0 or step 1 was interview, then after interview, we imported the data in the NVivo software. At our days, it used to be SPSS. Now the statistical software has become so bright and intelligent with the help of AI and technology. And this allows you to line by line coding and further consolidate this code into structured manner and create on the pattern, create patterns which can be clubbed into theme by theme development. And finally, the theme was refined and validated. That is AI and software doing. But it was not in one shot it happened. We had to go multiple steps along with my guide. And I had to go step by step to reach where I finally reached. And then the final theme and sub-themes. Now, going to the sub-themes and final themes, this is exhaustive data, which I know you cannot read. So I have organized it, the whole 9 themes which was created. I have organized it into a more legible manner. And this is the 9 themes which came. And the buckets I have created around is leadership, culture, mindset, and organization system.
Once could confirm, surely I will share it.
Somebody is not on mute. I would request you to be on mute, please. Or if you have a question, I can take the question at the end. So if you see mindset evolution, growth mindset, and emotional and cognitive shift, 1, 2, 3, theme number 1, 2, 3, I'm reading in sequence. Then leadership as determining variable. Then cultural reinforcement, communication, or not, then fifth onwards is organization resistance, and the 8th, 9th capabilities ecosystem and human AI trust calibration. So moving ahead, what is that we are seeing? We are seeing that from uncertainty to culture embedding, it has to go step by step of learning, experimentation, adaptation, and then cultural embedding. Technology acts as a catalyst, but behavioral adoption drives transformation. And this, all the people who are investing capital and technology into organizations, they need to be very aware about this. So hence what I see, I put it at 7 level, and this is a journey which I have put basis my research. You can take many other model, you can put it at 20 levels, you can put it at 3 levels, 100 levels, but it's a journey for sure. And as you see from the level 1 to level 7, bottom to up, initial disruption, identity recalibration, individuals have to recalibrate the identity, organization, department, systems need to recalibrate, experiments and learning has to be done, leadership has to help, and they need to amplify themselves and amplify it all, capable ecosystem formation, and human AI trust then finally is made, and then the cultural stabilization. So the traditional SARA, which is shock, anger, resistance, and acceptance, this research was done 1996, still seems to be standing in. People go through this journey of shock, anger, resistance, and then acceptance. And what we see is alignment of goal at one side and maturity happening on the other side. So technology adoption to digital maturity. Digital is going to be way of life. Now, reaching to my discussions and conclusion, behavioral digital adoption framework which I have offered, understanding human response is very important. Then leadership articulation, my research outcome says, is very important. And human AI transformation model and the trust has to be built in, and that has to be culturally reinforced. So the whole managerial implications of it is digitally fluent leadership, continuous learning ecosystem, analytic-driven decisions, experimentation culture, and psychological safety. So technology adoption will fail when human readiness is ignored. So future research which I advise is longitudinal study, cross-country comparisons, and sector-specific model and behavioral framework. My study is not a longitudinal one, and it's not cross-country. The data is only from India. And we can, though my conglomerate at which we have studied is 21 businesses, however, we can do sector-specific studies also. And the whole behavioral outcome, if we see multiple outcomes, like one outcome is from my research, we see multiple outcome, we can even create a behavioral framework, though I have proposed a framework basis my research. And what I'm trying to say is that to help summarize in a final conclusion, that digital transformation involves AI is fundamentally a human journey. Technology enables transformation, but people determines whether transformation will succeed. When these four elements on the right-hand side reinforces each other, it's a very system, symphony, symbiotic space which we have to all together create. AI technology becomes not a disruption to work, but an amplifier of human capability. So mindset, leadership, organization capability, culture, they have to come together, my research says, and then the human aspects of digital transformation is taken care, and we reap the digital transformation. These are a few appendices, how I did it, the software usage. I will not take you to too much of detail, but I can go at any detail. Thank you very much. I enjoyed presenting my work to all of you. I'll be more than happy to listen to your views, to answer any questions or any clarification. Thank you. You can reach me on my LinkedIn also, which is given there.
Thank you
Over to
very
you,
much. Yeah, thank you very much,
Dr.
Nilmani.
Jayanti. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that extensive presentation. I would like to invite anyone who have any comments, any questions for Nilmani in preparation for his Viva. So anyone, Mr. Nilmani, can you just keep your slide
Okay.
on the screen
I will.
in case
Yes.
anyone wants to ask any question?
Yeah. Hi, Nilmani. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Nilmani. It was a very excellent presentation, I must say, since you are the subject matter expert. So we could learn from you. Yes, this GNAI and the upcoming different modules of AI, it will transform different chapter, of any sorts of organization. But the challenges are there, at our current education system. If you see, since your presentation is in the Indian context, I believe. So in Indian context, there is a gap in between the education process flow and the industry process flow. So I don't know how industry is aligned, and they are giving the chances, the young mindset to be aligned with these sorts of AI courses and adoption, because it is not only the email check, okay, more than that, okay. So those sorts of bridging need to be done, to take on board all these youngsters for the next generation, technology, and move forward. Thank you again.
And Anindya ji, very powerful point, Anindya ji, I should say. And I have tried to mention them in my key challenges, but you took the agenda further up, I would say. If we can embed these things in education system, uh, I would really love to influence policy making. I would really love to, I have a desire to meet the skill commissioner of India, Mr. Balu, sometime. And these are a very profound thought which you shared. Thank you very much, Andhya.
Thanks. We will coordinate later on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anandya. So,
Notice, Jane,
do
can
we
I
have?
just?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
please.
okay. Mr. Neelmani, first of all, very good topic. I was totally glued for the last 25 minutes or so,
Thank
going through
you.
the entire slide deck, and I was able to relate to a lot of it because I know currently a lot of organizations are moving into this area. They want to disrupt a lot of things. But
Mm,
as you rightly said, the basic, how do we carry people also along with this is really very important.
mm,
And the methodology that you have used is something very similar to what I'm also trying to do in my study. So I was again, further able to relate to it. I just had few questions, just to understand a little better about this.
mm, mm.
So was this study conducted only within the, Aditya Birla space that you mentioned, or there were different companies, participants involved from various other companies also to understand this phenomena?
So, Uh, first of all, I want to clarify that Aditya Birla is a conglomerate, is a sort of a brand. However, we are in 21 businesses. We are in
Right.
cement business, finance business, mobile business, jewelry business, paints business, mining. So it is by itself a world. We say that if you join Aditya Birla, you don't have to change conglomerate because you will get many companies to work inside.
Okay.
However, still to make it exhaustive, as I manage the corporate university and the whole learning space, I did go outside and did
Okay.
some listening outside also. And
Oh,
especially
that's
the specialists who are authority, who come and teach, those were the people also I got a chance to talk to.
oh, that's
However,
wonderful.
I'm convinced, Vinayji, that Aditya Birla having 21 businesses so diverse is a good enough for doing a research and getting a sense of it. But I still stayed ambitious and did that. Thank
Okay.
you
And
very
the
much.
participants involved both, like the people at the leadership level, even at the ground level, or it was
Yes.
combination of both, right? A couple of more things. And as I said, maybe I will touch base with you later also, but what were those impediment factors? Or I would say, fear of people probably embracing it from your research, when you interviewed people. So what was
Mm.
the major fear factor that you probably were able to relate to?
See, as I said in my research, it was things like what will happen to my job or my workspace.
Yes.
Digital make everything transparent. It just breaks the silo. Digital doesn't know a person or a personality. So it just went on. Uh, the identity of the individual, the department, and even people who are controlling was getting challenged. Second, the individual capability building. It's fear of unknown. It's like I giving to my mother-in-law who is 82 year old a mobile phone, which is smartphone. She likes that Nokia or that, what Carpenter phone, but now they are also very evolved. That phone. She is very anxious, but when she starts using it for 5, 7 years, 10 years, she's using it. Now she's the one who's forwarding the most WhatsApp to us. The fear of unknown, capability building.
Yeah.
So these were the impediments when you, and then for leadership, for them to be convinced that will it give revenue? I'm going to do so much of investment. So they wait for use cases. So
Right.
thank you for asking that good question.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's Dr. Jain. Back to you.
Thank
Nice
you, Vinay.
presentation, Mr. Neelmani Singh. I am Ramachandran. It is not about AI. I'm going to ask you, being a qualitative study, how did you arrive at the saturation point with your experts, and how many experts were actually contacted for that?
So, sir, if you see my sample, they are at a leadership level who have successfully used it, and there is some expert who is leading. Uh, I've promised them anonymity, but I can tell you some description.
I can keep the anonymity.
I understand, sir. Thank you very much. So, like somebody as large as Ultratech of, say, about 15, 20 billion organization with more than 10, 15,000 employee, this person is leading the digital transformation there. We spoke to a person like that. They are very senior leader who's leading. Then we spoke to people at a middle level also who's getting impacted. So try to make a good blend of, and then a couple of people who are teaching digital transformation, who have seen from a distance and understand it from the perspective, structure, and model space. So that is how I try to create a full view of the data which I was collecting.
Saturation, how did you decide, sir?
When you say saturation, are you talking about sample size?
The adequacy of the participants.
Pardon?
The adequacy of the participants. The number of participants where you thought it is enough. Now we need not go for further participants.
Yeah. So we did the research methodology class, which I used to have. I discussed with the professor there and with my guide. So to start with, we said that being a epistemological study, 10 to 15 will be good enough. However, after doing my 15, I was not satisfied. I said that I will go for more. And then going more, I went to 18, then 21, and then finally at 25, I went. So that was my personal discussion with my guide, and we stopped at 25. Well,
Very much, sir,
otherwise
for
10 to
the
15 was good enough.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Ramachandran. Is there anyone else who would like to ask any question or any comment to Nilmani Singh? So if there is none, actually, I just have one tips or comments to Nilmani. Okay, excellent PowerPoint presentation and excellent sharing and explaining in the academic way of our research, your research, your special, your area, subject area matter. Now, I did notice that you have the snapshot of the NVivo software screenshot at the end in the appendix.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Would you kindly go to that slide at the end? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So excellent, excellent NVivo screenshots. So if instead of putting in the appendix, if you could put it as part of your presentation on the data analysis section, it will bring out more clearer for the examiner. So
Right.
just maybe tweak a little bit of those software that, or rather that analysis that you obtain from NVivo into your chapter 4 finding and analysis to identify or to connect how you derive those data. So that is just one tip so that when examiner is actually reviewing or listening to your presentation, they can connect and see the en vivo tool analysis as well. So that is just one tip to make your presentation more clearer for the examiner as well as anyone who's attending. So that is one tip. I have one query to ask you whether what was your any challenges that you experienced when you were doing this data collection? You did the one-to-one interview. If you could share, it will give some insights to our learners as well as all those who are in this audience. Thank you.
Professor Jayanti, thank you very much for that kind input and confidence giving, and at the same time giving me confidence that this slide appendix is so valuable that it should come in the main slide. Thank you very much. I'll work on it. And on the data collection, the good part was that the topic is so spiraling upward that people were positive about it. However, I was very clear, and as Professor Ramchandran asked about the sample, that my sample should be a representative, rich sample. Hence, I said I'll go to the senior most level also and come to the user mode also. So, when you go to senior most level, getting them their appointment and they staying with that appointment and their time becomes a little difficult. So that was one part. And other part was that my ambition itself, 10 to 15 was good enough. But I went on adding more till we reached 25. And then we said, there's no end to it. You can keep talking to as many people, which actually I informally keep talking to people. And I've not captured them formally here. But that was, so one is my ambition itself can create the problem. Another, senior people who are at CEO level, business director, business head level, I went and spoke to them also, their time availability. Though they were very empathetic and sympathetic and wanting to be in the topic, and they took my promise that once my research is done and when I write my paper or whatever, I should share the outcomes and the papers with them. So thank you for asking that question.
Certainly, because qualitative research is all about data richness. Although it's very interesting and very motivating, especially to learners that have joined this session to learn more. For the qualitative research, if you have uh, interviewed more people and then look at the richness of the data, then it will really make your research a quality research. And Nilmani, just to let you know, I would encourage, once you complete your thesis, you could actually do a publication of your paper. So with that, I wish you all the best for your
Thank you.
Viva. And yes, all the best
Thank you.
to you. You can
Thank you.
unshare your screen. And I will call upon the third learner. You ready? Jinwoo Che. Are you there?
Hello,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Okay, so if you could just quickly share your screen, we can start your session.
Um,
Okay, if you can just put in the PowerPoint
mm,
presented. All right. So Jinwoo Che is going for his Viva, and I want to congratulate you, Jinwoo, for reaching to this milestone, important milestone. So Jinwoo would have 25 minutes of presentation time for his presentation today. So with that, whenever you are ready, you can start, Jinwoo. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor. Good day, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present my graduation thesis today. My name is Jinwoo Che, and the title of my research is Reverse Discrimination and Labor Management, Analyzing Gender Dynamics and Managerial Strategies Affecting Korean Men in the Workforce. This study was conducted under the guidance of my supervisor, Dr. Norlame Bourbon, and it examines how gender equity policies are perceived, interpreted, and experienced by male employees in South Korea. Rather than questioning the necessity of gender equity itself, this research focuses on how policy implementation and managerial communication shape employee reactions, particularly among men. Let me briefly outline today's presentation. First, I'll introduce the context and core problem, focusing on Korea's structural transition from militarized modernity to OECD-driven equity benchmarks. Second, I'll explain the theoretical foundations that guide this research. Third, I'll discuss the research methodology, including respondents, survey instruments, and data collection procedures. Then I'll present the key findings, structured into 5 data clusters. Finally, I'll discuss managerial and policy implications, followed by a conclusion and future outlook toward 2030. To understand the issue of reverse discrimination, it is essential to first understand Korea's labor history. Korea's workplace culture was historically shaped by what scholars describe as militarized modernity. This system emphasized long working hours, seniority-based promotion, loyalty, and masculine endurance. However, as South Korea became an advanced economy and joined the OECD, it began facing external pressure to reform its labor institutions. OECD benchmarks highlighted persistent gender inequality, especially in pay gaps and leadership representation. As a result, the Korean government initiated a policy pivot, introducing quotas and affirmative action measures aimed at dismantling structural barriers faced by women. This study addresses a key paradox. Korea still shows a strong structural inequality, including a 29.3% gender pay gap, the highest in the OECD. However, 72.3% of male employees report perceiving reverse discrimination in hiring, promotion, and evaluation. The central issue is therefore not whether inequality exists, but the growing gap between objective inequality and subjective perceptions of unfairness. This perception gap has become a major organizational challenge. This study has 3 main objectives. First, perception. To analyze how male employees interpret gender equity policies in their workplaces. Second, attitudes. To examine how perceived discrimination affects job satisfaction, commitment, and turnover intention. Third, governance. To identify managerial factors such as transparency and leadership that shape whether policies are seen as legitimate. Four research questions guide this study. How do male employees perceive gender policies in recruitment, promotion, and evaluation? How do managerial communication and implementation affect trust in management? What psychological mechanisms link perceived unfairness to disengagement? And what organizational conditions can reduce backlash and strengthen policy legitimacy? The first framework is equity theory, which explains fairness as a comparison between inputs such as effort and performance and outcomes like rewards or promotion. Perceived reverse discrimination emerges when employees believe their inputs are undervalued. The second is social identity theory, which suggests that people react defensively when their group status feels threatened. In competitive workplaces, gender policies can trigger identity concerns even when designed to reduce inequality. This study also draws on institutional compliance theory, which distinguishes between symbolic compliance and substantive integration of policies. When policies are adopted only formally, employees may view them as tokenism. To connect these levels, the study applies the IOI framework, linking institutional pressure, organizational practices, and individual perceptions to explain how resentment develops. The study uses a post-positivist sequential explanatory mixed methods design, combining quantitative and qualitative approaches. An online survey collected 506 valid responses from male employees across private firms, public institutions, and state-owned enterprises. The questionnaire used Likert scale items measuring perceived fairness, trust in management, job satisfaction, commitment, and turnover intention. A qualitative component was also included to capture personal experiences. To ensure anonymity, the survey did not collect names but included demographic data such as rank, tenure, age group, and employment sector. Participation was limited to male respondents to match the study's focus. The survey's final item was an open-ended question asking, please describe any experience where you felt disadvantaged as a man in your workplace. Responses were collected over 4 weeks and analyzed using thematic coding to complement the quantitative findings. Cluster analysis of the survey data revealed 5 distinct perceptual clusters that explain how male employees experience gender equity policies. The first cluster is labeled transparency deficit. This cluster reveals a profound lack of procedural clarity surrounding gender equity policies. Only 13% of respondents agree that gender policies are communicated clearly within their organization. In contrast, 60.7% disagree that managers consider male employees' concerns, and 52.2% agree that these policies exist primarily to satisfy external compliance requirements. What this tells us is that the problem is not the policy itself, but the absence of explanation. When employees do not understand the rationale behind policies, they interpret them as arbitrary or imposed. Looking deeper into this cluster, 3 key issues emerge. First, there is an informational vacuum because communication is unclear. Employees rely on informal networks and workplace rumors to interpret policy intent. Second, there is an interactional deficit. Over 60% of respondents believe that management does not consider male perspectives, signaling exclusion from the decision-making process. Third, we see bureaucratic ritualism. Policies are perceived as externally imposed checklists rather than internally shared values, which erodes trust in management. The second cluster is titled Erosion of Meritocracy. This cluster reflects a perceived breakdown of the implicit performance reward contract. Specifically, 58.7% disagree that promotion opportunities are fair to men. 55.5% disagree that evaluations are based on merit, and 51.8% disagree that organizational procedures are fair. These perceptions indicate that employees believe the rules of advancement have fundamentally changed without sufficient explanation. This perception produces three serious organizational consequences. First is procedural injustice. Employees feel that promotion and evaluation criteria have become opaque and selectively applied. Second is a motivation crisis. When performance no longer guarantees advancement, incentives for effort and excellence collapse. Third is the status aspiration gap. Men perceive their career progression as artificially capped, which creates long-term resentment and disengagement. The third cluster captures the rise of zero-sum beliefs in the workplace. In this group, 36.8% agree that gender policies reduce male opportunities. 51.3% perceive an us versus them environment, and 62.7% believe men have become a disadvantaged group. This reflects a psychological shift from cooperation to competition between gender groups. These findings indicate strong identity-based polarization. Gender equity is interpreted as redistribution of limited resources rather than collective improvement. As a result, policies trigger defensive framing, where men view themselves as victims rather than stakeholders. Once this framing takes hold, organizational cohesion weakens and conflict becomes normalized. The fourth cluster shows that perceived reverse discrimination is not abstract, it is personal. 77.4% of respondents report personally experiencing unfair treatment because they are men, and 78.7% believe gender policies negatively affect their long-term career prospects. This suggests that resentment is not based on ideology alone, but on lived experience within organizations. The final cluster addresses the most critical outcome, withdrawal intentions. Over 51% strongly agree with the intention to quit. Additionally, 79% report lower job satisfaction, 78.2% report reduced organizational commitment, and 77.9% have seriously considered leaving their organization. This cluster demonstrates that perceived unfairness directly translates into disengagement and turnover risk. When employees believe advancement is limited by non-merit factors, disengagement becomes a rational response. In this study, withdrawal appears not just as dissatisfaction, but as intention to exit. In Korea's shrinking and aging labor market, the disengagement of skilled male employees, especially in technical and managerial roles, could lead to long-term losses in institutional knowledge and leadership capacity. At the macro level, this creates a brain drain risk driven by perceived procedural unfairness. The results show clear demographic differences in perceptions of reverse discrimination. Younger employees in their 20s and 30s report the highest resentment, with 82.1% perceiving strong unfairness during their early career stages. Perceptions are also strongest in the public sector, where rigid numerical targets are common. Additionally, junior employees report greater unfairness than senior executives, suggesting that those with less power feel more excluded. These findings suggest a decoupling problem. When equity policies exist institutionally but are not integrated into organizational culture, they become symbolic box-ticking measures. Formal rules remain, but fairness is not felt in practice. Importantly, backlash is not resistance to equality itself, but a predictable result of weak implementation and poor communication. To move forward, organizations must shift from symbolic compliance to substantive legitimacy. First, radical transparency is essential. Organizations must clearly explain how merit is evaluated and explicitly communicate the tiebreaker rule, where gender is considered only between equally qualified candidates. Second, equity should be framed as inclusive diversity, extending beyond women to include paternity leave, flexible work, and caregiving support for all employees. Third, organizations need safe voice mechanisms, allowing men to express identity-based concerns without fear of stigma or retaliation. Based on these findings, I propose several strategic HR interventions. First, military service on ramps should be strengthened to compensate for uncompensated input through a structured reintegration programs and training credits. Second, organizations should promote universal work-life balance policies, especially encouraging paternity leave usage to normalize caregiving roles. Third, government regulation should shift from rigid quota enforcement to principle-based regulation, emphasizing fair process and audit-based legitimacy. Finally, leadership training is essential. Managers must be equipped to handle intergroup tensions using common victimhood narratives, emphasizing shared pressures rather than group competition. In conclusion, sustainable workforce governance requires both women's integration and male commitment. These are not competing objectives, but complementary ones. This study demonstrates that procedural justice acts as a psychological buffer against perceptions of arbitrary disadvantage. Looking toward 2030, Korea's labor policies must move beyond numerical targets and toward principle-based, process-oriented governance. Only then can organizations foster genuine inclusion, reduce backlash, and secure long-term workforce sustainability. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you so much, Jinwoo, for that presentation. Now, I would like to open the floor for questions. Dr. Anindya, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse, for your nice presentation. I have one, two questions. While you have mentioned in your sample survey slide that you have taken the sample survey considering the private companies, right? So here it is very much important, which sector actually you have considered. Like in private sector, again, the petrochemicals, non-petrochemicals, the steel industry, different manufacturing industries are there, then finance, banking, all sectors are there. So how actually you have spread your sample survey that need to be discussed, and out of that, how is the gender spread in all those segment or sector and these private companies? That is also one of the important topic. And in government sector, we understand there are limited sectors or divisions or departments. So that also, if you done, can you please tell us, yeah, in brief, how is the spread?
So, Anindya, can I just ask you to just break down the question so he can just respond
Okay.
according? Thank you.
Okay, my question is, in the private sector, in your sample survey slide, you have mentioned that you have taken X% of the private sector and Y% of the government sector, right? My question is that in private sector, how you segmented, maybe some percentage of finance sector, some percentage of the manufacturing sector. In manufacturing, again, how much percentage is related to the steel or metal, or this heavy engineering or petrochemical, non-petrochemical. Okay, maybe there is other sector that is the healthcare sector. How is the spread? Yeah, that is my question.
Jinwoo, you
Jesse?
can respond to that. Jinwoo? Jinwoo, can you hear us? Jinwoo, can you respond, please? Are you able to respond? Or can you hear us? Okay, I think probably he has got some issue. I'm not getting a response from him. Anyone else have any question? No? Okay, so I will. Jinwoo, can you hear us? Are you able to hear us? I can see your video, but I'm not able to hear you at all. I know, Winnie, you're waiting. Just give 1 second, okay? Let's see whether Jinwoo can. Jinwoo, can you hear us? Can you respond to Dr. Anandya's question?
I think he's trying to mute and unmute. Maybe he's facing
Yeah,
some technical challenge, looks like.
maybe he's having some tech. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, all right. So, anyone else have any query, any question for Jinwoo's presentation? See, okay,
I
he is
had one question for Jinwoo.
okay. Yes,
Okay, in one of the slides, Jinwoo mentioned that there is about 79% low job satisfaction. And my question was that is this 79% reflective of it could be reflective of various factors, like, or is it only reflective of the job discrimination which is contributing to this low satisfaction? I'm not too sure if Jinwoo is able to hear me or
yeah, I
would be
think
able
he
to
seems
respond.
to have some technical.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for that question, that valuable question. So, uh, Jinwoo, just one last time. Can you hear us? Are you able to respond?
Probably he can use the chat section if he's able to hear us.
Can you hear
Jin,
me?
yes, we can hear you. Are you able to respond to? There was two questions. One is Dr. Anandya, and the second one is Dr. Rajesh, right?
Yes,
Uh,
not doctor, but Rajesh, yes.
Rajesh, okay, Rajesh.
uh, thank you for the first question. The sample was segmented at 2 levels. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go
Yes.
ahead. Go ahead.
First by broad industry categories and second by subsectors where applicable. At the industry level, respondents were distributed across major sectors, including the public sector, finance, manufacturing, and service industries. Among these, manufacturing and public institutions accounted for the largest proportions of the sample. Within the manufacturing sector, for the segmentation was considered where possible. This included subfields such as heavy industry, engineering, and petrochemical related sectors. However, due to limitations in sample size at the subsector level, the analysis focused primarily on broader industry categories rather than highly specific divisions like steel or metal production. Therefore, while the study reflects cross-industry representation, it prioritized overall sectoral patterns rather than detailed subsector comparisons. And second sector, a second question is the 79% is likely reflective of multiple factors rather than a single cause, while job discrimination may contribute to low satisfaction. It is probably one of several determinants, including working conditions, compensation, and organizational culture.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Jin,
One
you
point.
let me to ask a question here.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Gino, share your screen, please. Gino, share your screen, please. Gino, can you share your screen, please? Gino, can you hear me? 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 All of us, we can see your camera is on. Can you hear us?
Hello, Professor. I can hear you, but there is an error.
Okay, share your screen, please.
I cannot hear.
You were sharing your screen. I can see that you were presenting. Why now you cannot share? What happened? Can you share your screen, please? Gino, can you share your screen, please? Or no, you cannot. Gino, can you share your screen? Okay, Dr. Jane, move to the second presenter.
All right. Okay, thank you. So we have our final learner, Vinay Agrawal. Thank you for, okay, can you please put on the slideshow?
Okay, so just a quick confirmation if my slide is visible and I'm audible.
Yes, you are. All right. Now, Vinay is doing his research proposal. So, Vinay, you have exactly 15 minutes to do your
Sure.
presentation. And I wish you all the best, and you may start whenever you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready. So,
Okay, go
a
ahead.
warm welcome to everyone. As per the time zone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The topic that I'm going to present today is the first leap into leadership, understanding the lived experiences of first line managers in Indian clinical research organizations. Myself, Vinay Agarwal, and I'll just give you a little brief about me as to why I have chosen this. I have been in this clinical industry for almost a couple of decades. And last decade, I have spent a lot of time in scaling up of teams and building the leaderships. So this topic is really very near and dear to me. For my work, I have Dr. Kanishka Bedi as my research guide. And so far, this has been a good experience of, him reviewing and turning it around quickly for me and providing his inputs. So, yeah. So moving forward, let me talk about or introduce you to the topic that I'm looking into. So this study basically focuses on the shift of someone from an individual contributor to the first line management role. And the context is the clinical research organizations within the clinical research sector in India. Now, before I move further, maybe some of you may have the question as to what is an IC. So IC is basically an individual who so far is managing individual projects, only responsible for his or her own delivery. But when someone moves into the first line manager role, the role changes. Now this person is responsible for the overall team delivery and managing the team. So this particular role is very pivotal because the FLMs helps to translate the strategy into execution and shape the day-to-day operations. They also act as operational integrators and relational facilitators. What I mean is they influence not only work output, but also the immediate environment and the culture in which their teams operate. And we all know how important it is to have that kind of a culture and psychological safety around for the team. Now, why to study this? What happens if this transition is not so successful? It can destabilize quality, engagement, and retention, which are again very crucial piece when it comes to delivery, not only in the CRO world, maybe in any other industry. Now, let me talk about the clinical research industry to give you a little more insights. I'm sure most of you would have heard about this industry, especially during the COVID time, when there was so much focus on the vaccine development. So basically, clinical research sector is an important arm of healthcare, wherein new drugs are being tried and tested. And once they get the regulatory approval, they are launched in market for various diseases or indications. Now, the major player in this field are the pharmaceutical companies. In our industry, we term them as sponsors. The second major stakeholder would be the contract research organizations. Now, what are these contract research organizations? These organizations basically are the service providers. So if I'm a pharmaceutical company and if I want to try my drug, there are two options. One, I can take it full-fledgedly at my end, but then most of the pharmaceutical companies may not have that kind of workforce. So they go to the service providers like the CROs, and these CROs help in conducting the trials and getting the results for them. There are so many CROs right now in India. I'm just focusing on the India. Worldwide sector, the picture is different in terms of, again, CROs. Now, we also need to keep in mind that this industry is very ethically regulated. A lot of, as I said, regulations, FDA involvement, local CDSO involvement, a lot of ethics committees involvement, because we are talking about patients, safety, and also at the same time, how this new drug is safe and efficacious for the patients. Now, why India? Because right now, India has established self as a delivery hub. In the last couple of decades, we have seen a lot of traction in India in terms of managing global projects. There are three major reasons. One is definitely the kind of talent that we have, and that also the English-speaking talents, be it the medical graduates, be it the regular graduates, the science graduates who are required to take this forward. Second is definitely the cost factor. Okay, and third is also the availability of all kind of patients around and the infrastructure, the medical infrastructure that we have. Now, on top of it, in the last 3 to 4 years, there have been a lot of new models that are emerging. So like centralized kind of a model, wherein our presence is in India, but we are doing a lot of offshore project management activities. Again, that adds more flavor to the overall clinical research sector. Now, coming to literature review, the literature consistently describes the IC to FLM move as a disruptive transition, not a routine promotion. Now, the core reason in the shift is how value is created. So earlier, the value was created by doing our own work, but now the value is created by enabling the others. In addition, managerial work is often fragmented, reactive, which creates a reality gap between the ideal leadership, expectations, and everyday managerial work or life, I would say. Now, finally, the transition can be also understood as liminal. So again, I'll introduce this concept of liminal. So if I have to put it in very lay language, it would be like I have moved from some role. I've moved my previous role. I am into a new role, but I have not established it. So I'm carrying something from there. I'm not fully established here over here. So in that status. Now, beyond disruption, the literature frames becoming the first line manager as also identity reconstruction. Not just task change, promotion involves social reclassification. Say from a specialist or peer to now a management. Again, a big disruption for the person. Now, these new line managers, often experiment with provisional selves and make sense of their role through daily experience and feedback. Now, importantly, legitimacy is not automatically granted by title. It is negotiated through relationships, especially in peer to manager transitions where the fairness is also scrutinized at the team level. So key sensitizing concept would also be the technical theaters. Now, again, one more concept of technical theaters is basically when I have to establish myself in the role, when I am not still there, how do I continue? So some of the literature says that some of the managers go back to their traditional speciality, which was their technicalities. So they attach themselves to technical theaters. So that can be an impediment for them in their journey. Now, based on the literature put together, this slide synthesizes conceptual framework that acts as a sensitizing lens. Now, it is not predictive, but it guides what I examine in lived experience. Now, it frames the IC to FLM transition as a non-linear process of becoming an Indian CROs. And it aligns directly with research questions that you will see in the coming slides. Now, first, the trigger. Promotion as a discontinuity. So it leads to a lot of shifts, like it shifts the success criteria. It's like an entry shock, ambiguity for the person who has entered into the role. Second is identity work and sense making. Now, how the FLM reconstructs what it means to lead, how they interpret who they are in the new role. Third is relational legitimacy, where acceptance is negotiated with peers, direct reports, and even with the senior leaders, creating what I said earlier, sandwich pressure. So you are in between, you have the senior folks up, the direct reports down, and how do you manage that? And the last is the environment in which they are working, the organizational and CRO constraints. As I said, most of the organizations and literature also says, banks on this sink and swim kind of a culture, wherein based on your past accolades, you have been put into the new role. But then, was there any preparation that helped you to get into this role? Or how are you supported in the new role? Or are you left on your own? And this is more important when you are talking about an industry like clinical research, wherein there is zero tolerance to any challenges. There are a lot of audits, complexity, a lot of turnovers that we see. Also, as I mentioned during the clinical research slide, we are seeing a new operating models. So there are a lot of virtual teams that we are looking into. So how do I really set myself? Now, from the interactions of these four domains, we see emergent experiences such as technical theaters, sandwich effect that I've spoken about, and defensive control behaviors. Now, it depends how a line manager, a first line manager, is demonstrating based on these four quadrants. Okay. This framework also surfaces the key gap, which is limited inside out account of how FLMs experience this transition as it unfolds. So literature talks about, what is it that the managers should do, how they should behave, or what are the criteria for their success. But then very limited studies, especially in the clinical research sector, where technical literature is a lot. People dwell a lot into the technical literature, but from a management perspective, uh, very limited to say what exactly a line manager feels when the manager is into that role. So the problem statement is, as I just said, that despite extensive research on managerial transitions, I would say across various sectors, clinical research is something that probably needs more research, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. But in this, we want to understand how FLMs experience and interpret their own shift. So inside out kind of a gap. And again, I will not repeat this, but the industry pattern, the environment plays a very big role. So therefore, the CROs over here definitely lack evidence-based insight into design, preparation, inboarding, and support, which is aligned with the lived realities of the new line managers. Now, before I move into the research objectives and the research questions, I would say when I joined this program a couple of years back, from my experience that I shared during the first slide, I always wanted to work on this area. And I'm very glad that some of the modules during the course till what I have reached now has helped me to at least bring in some matter around this transition. So during my qualitative research module and also the research methodology module, I was able to conduct a couple of studies to understand the outside in. So basically from senior perspective and from a direct report perspective. So the senior leaders perspective study, I was also able to publish in one of the journals. So we now understand exactly what is it that the seniors are looking into. In a nutshell, if I have to tell you, they are looking towards, they say that you have to shift away more from a technical execution, move towards delegation, risk anticipation, ownership. When you talk to the direct reports, now this is an unpublished observation, but as a part of module that has been submitted, over here, people are saying that, yes, we are looking from a direct report perspective that we are banking on you for technical support. We are banking you to create that kind of atmosphere that we grow, we live happily, like in terms of psychological safety. But then we do not understand. Now, this is still a gap as to what is it these line managers feel in between them. Okay, so this study tries to fulfill that particular gap. So the objectives that I have for this particular study based on the framework that we saw. One is to explore the lived experience with special attention to understand how these new FLMs shift from technical expert to people leader. Then to examine the sandwich effect, again, as I've been saying for a couple of slides, the upward and the downward and how they do manage that. Then to identify the internal and external organizational conditions also, like we saw in the framework, what makes them either to go into the subdue mode or go back into the technical theaters and try to establish themselves. So that will help to understand a little more. And also based on what will be gathered from this data, maybe we'll be able to put an transition framework, based on the lived accounts that can probably help to build the leadership pipeline as we move forward in the CRO world. Now, in terms of research questions, first is identity shift again. How do FLMs in Indian CROs describe that move from technical expert to people leader, and what are the turning points in their personal identity? This sandwich effect that we already spoke of, the internal and external organizational factor, and the cultural context.
Okay, Vinay, you only have 2 more minutes. Can you wrap it up, please?
Yes. The design is the hermeneutic phenomenology, purposive sampling, wherein I will be approaching first-line managers who have 6 to 36 months of experience in the Indian CROs. Semi-structured interviews will be done. Analysis would be based on reflexive thematic analysis. Sample size for the time being is at around 25, but then it will be guided by the information power or any saturation that we see. Inclusion, FLM has to be in CRO in India, move through either promotion, internal company movement, or change of job, an experience of 6 to 36 months. Exclusion, we will not be considering anyone who has not moved into the management. Senior managers are out of this. Less than 6 or more than 36 months not considered. And also the hybrid roles. If someone who is managing the people management and plus the technical part, I will not consider those. I will only need people who are purely into the people management role. And recruitment would be through professional networks, LinkedIn, Snowball referring. Some of the contributions, if you ask me, theoretical contribution would be, at least I'll be able to put something in the literature to say exactly, what are the factors that can lead to a positive transition. Practically, we will be able to generate insights, design inputs for pre-promotion preparation or inboarding, before getting into the role. So they're well prepared. From an organizational perspective, yes, it will strengthen the leadership pipeline and reduce the transition challenges that we have seen. Overall, definitely CROs will be able to move from that swim and sink kind of a culture to intentional transition. And that's what the essence of this study would be. So yeah, thank you so much for your attention. I would love to hear any feedback, questions, which can make it a little more elaborative.
Okay, thank you, Vinay. Open the floor for any comments, any questions. Anyone? Okay, it looks like there's no questions right now. Okay, so I have a few tips or brief to all our learners. Annette, Nilmani, Jinwoo, and Vinay. All right, you are very aware of the time allocated to you. Please be mindful. All right. So, like Vinay, you had to rush. You had to rush because actually you took more than 15 minutes before I gave you the reminder. All right. So you all need to really, really practice because that is the allocation that is given for your presentation, for your examination, oral examination, or your defense proposal for RP and for Viva for the thesis. All right. So it's really very crucial that you practice before you rush. When you rush, nobody can really understand what you're trying to explain. All right. So the tip, one tip that I also emailed to all our learners. Okay, no need to go through the contents. Everybody know if you are doing, I mean, the examiner knows if you are doing a research proposal, it's 3 chapters. Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Don't have to go in details. Just just flash the slide and just briefly try to try to spend only maybe 15 seconds just to explain about that, and then focus more on your presentation. So that is really the tip that I want to share to all our learners. And yeah, I hope that this symposium is just a practice symposium. For research proposal is only 15 minutes, but your actual research defense proposal is 20 minutes. For the Viva, actual is 30 minutes. So we are trying to make you to practice within that time allocated. However, you really need to uh, have a timer and decide what you want to talk, what is more important. Okay. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for attending this session. I think some of the learner have already dropped off. Um, but if anyone else have any feedback or any comment, I would like to open the floor for any comments from existing people who are in this session. Okay, so nothing. So I wish
Jane,
all.
Alinda
Yes,
here. One
yes, Dr.
point.
Ananya.
What I observed on JC's presentation regarding this Korea matter, his industry selection is very much broad. My
Mhm.
suggestion, since it's a research topic, so if he can focus one or two industry or maximum three, four industry, that will be better. Otherwise, it's a very broad, and accordingly, the sample
Yeah.
size need to be looked into. The sample size only 500, which cannot cover the entire thing, private and government. So that's the suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that valuable input, and I'm sure they will take note of that. Anyhow, just to share with you all, this session is recorded and it's actually live. As soon as I end this session, you can go over to YouTube and listen back to all the feedback or comments from the audience. Okay. So with that, thank you very much, and I wish good evening to everyone, and all the best to all our learners. Goodbye from Global Next University. Thank you.